What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to my review of the Zero Soft Sinus. This is a disc from Latitude 64. It was actually one of the earliest discs I ever reviewed. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I had a review out on this disc for several years, and is probably the first Latitude 64 disc I ever tried as well, was that original Sinus that I reviewed all those years ago. At the time, I was also using a Zone, which I preferred, and I believe after that I switched to a neutron tensor, which kind of covered me in that range, and also I could get it a little bit farther, and that's kind of the way that went. At this point, I'm using harps. I've been a Caltrup fan for a long time, but whatever it is, and some of you guys that have been following the channel know that I've been amassing a huge stack of these overstable approach discs to do kind of a definitive video about these and show you guys a ton of different options from different manufacturers and all that kind of stuff. So I will be doing that soon, but whatever it is that you end up choosing, I feel like the overstable flat top, generally flat top overstable approach disc is one of the most crucial discs on the market, and one of the most crucial discs in your bag, rather. And it's just something that you must have. And whatever one you choose, there's a lot of different options. It's a disc you're going to lean on, and it's going to save you some strokes when you get used to how to use it. So the Sinus is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, perfectly flat, no thumb track overstable approach disc. I believe the Pig and the Rhino might predate the Sinus, but the Sinus does predate the Zone, from what I understand, if I'm getting all my information correct. You can look all that up in the PDGA approved lists and all that kind of stuff, but the Sinus was definitely one of the first ones that I had tried. Let's give you a close look at the design of this disc. So all these years later, I got a chance to revisit this disc. I actually had a review out for quite a while. I wasn't happy with it. I deleted it or made it private quite a while ago, and I've had this one in the testing queue for a bit now too. I actually, flight footage you're going to see on this thing coming up was actually from a couple years ago already at this point, or at least a year ago now. Taking a closer look, has some, I guess this is Latin there. I'm not going to read it, but I believe it's basically just says it's not affected by the wind, and that's kind of the goal of the Sinus. You have these textured grip panels on this disc, and that is one of the most noticeable things about the disc and defining characteristics of this disc. But the thing about these is, if you don't like them, they're spaced in such a way that even me with my giant sausage hands, like, I can grab this disc and be nowhere near those. Like, if I'm holding it here, I'm not touching, even my palm isn't touching those. If you want your thumb to be on it, you can. If you want your thumb to be on it in your forehand grip, you can do that. I don't really care for it. I don't see any benefit to that being there, and I feel like the disc probably would have sold better over the years, and I think people would have liked it more without them overall, to be perfectly honest. But it's one of those things where it doesn't bother me by any means. It's not really a deterrent for me personally, because again, you can grab it there if you want to, or you can just move over and grab it. And for me, one of the things I do on the tees, it's almost like not quite a nervous tick, but close for me, where I take quite a while to make sure the disc is sitting in my hand the way I want it to before I even start my run up. I don't do any of this, not doing any of that stuff, but I do, take some time to make sure the disc is sitting in my hand the way I want it to before I release. So it's no trouble to ignore those grip pads if you don't like them. I don't know the weight on this guy, but I'm sure it's in the 170 somewhere. Is it marked? Yeah, 173. So basically max weight for this disc. This disc was sent to me by a big friend of the channel, huge supporter, Max Garcia. He's been a Patreon member for quite a while. He's just been watching the channel and supporting it for a long time. And he sent me a pair of these to test and review, including this one, and also one that was the Bobby Music version. It was like a Moonshine Burst. That one started out more overstable, but it was broken in when I got it, and they were flying almost interchangeably. I couldn't really tell a difference. So, I'm just going to show you this one. That one is actually no longer here. I think I gave that away to somebody else or something. I'm not exactly sure what happened to that other one. So let's take a look at the Sinus one more time before we show it next to some other things on its own. It's got basically like a little puddle top to it. And, no thumb track, none of that. Just has these little textured grip panels. And then on the outside of the disc, the actual design, it's maybe feels a little bit deeper than some other discs. It's really hard to say for that. I'm really bad at judging that, but there it is right there. It has kind of like an implied bead, as you can tell. Let's put it up next to a couple other things. First of all, the most obvious one would be a zone, and this is the old run ESP zone. This is one Andy loaned me for my overstable approach disc video that I told you guys about that's coming up. And here it is next to the zone, side by side. The zone, just a little bit more of a comfortable design for me. Also perfectly flat, where the Sinus is slightly puddle top, this exact one. And there you can see it next to the zone. Let's swing it around and show you the underside as well. Always tricky to get these lined up very well, but I'll give you a quick idea. And also, the disc that I'm using in my bag, also produced by Latitude 64, and this is the harp. This is just a Rigio harp, baseline harp, basically. And just before we go any further, out of these three, I definitely like the Sinus the least. I'm bagging the harp. I love the harp. This one's also got a little bit of a puddle top to it, and the harp has that a little bit more pronounced bead on there, where the Sinus is more of an implied bead. But other than that, you can see the harp also has more meat, more mass on the top part here than the Sinus does, which has a little bit of a slimmer top of this part of the rim, and then it slopes down for a longer period of time, where the harp has more chunky outside rim there, and then a smaller area that dips down there that ends up locking into my finger really nice for a forehand approach. So let's talk about the flight of this thing. The Sinus doesn't really do anything that the other overstable approach discs that I've mentioned or will show you in that huge video coming up here very soon. I've been talking about it for so long. Some of you probably think I'm just making it up at this point, but I am going to hunker down and finish that up soon, because I finally collected all the different ones that I want to. But throughout all the testing of all those different molds, they all kind of do around the same thing. There's going to be some variation in how overstable they are compared to one another. The Sinus is probably a little bit less overstable than the harp, at least in similar conditions. That's also going to fluctuate a little bit. I'm really liking the fact that I can throw the VIP harps and that they will continue to fly very similar for a long period of time and take a really long time to break in. The Sinus will definitely break in faster in the Zero Soft plastic. I do love the Zero Soft, by the way. I didn't quite touch on that in this particular video earlier on, but it is one of my favorite plastic blends. It's got an incredible grip, and it feels awesome. And it's really nice for the ground play. When it lands, it stays where it lands, and that's always a beneficial thing in my experience, in my opinion. But yeah, Sinus, not terribly remarkable in terms of the way it flies compared to anything else. It's pretty overstable, but it's not a total meat hook. You can throw it pretty flat, and it'll fly straighter overall than some of the others. Doesn't have as much bite to it. It's not quite as mean as like a fresh harp, like a soft harp. Definitely more overstable. Prodigy A2, definitely more overstable. I would say probably the Pig is a little bit more overstable overall than the Sinus. It is something that won't turn at all unto itself, and I hear that they're absolutely legendary in the wind. I have not had a lot of wind experience to test this with, if any. Just maybe some light breezes out on the course, so I really can't speak to that aspect of it. But of course, that's another main reason you're going to want to carry an overstable approach disc. And I hear from lots of reports, especially Dave Felberg, who has been a champion of this disc for quite a while, that the Sinus is just incredible in the wind, and that's kind of what it's designed for. So if that's what you're looking for, it could be a great option, and ultimately it's going to come down to what feels best in your hand. I gave you as close a look at this disc as I can, and some of the aspects of the design to consider. And other than that, yeah, you're just going to want to figure out which one feels best to you, and make sure you have something like this in your bag, because it's an absolutely crucial disc that I think all players should have for sure. So that is my review on the Latitude 64 Sinus. Kind of a classic disc at this point, been around for a long time, kind of paved the way for discs like the Zone and the Harp and the Tactic and those other, very flat-topped, overstable approach discs. And I think it's still perfectly valid. And if you found a Sinus and you like the way it feels in the hand, it's definitely just as useful as any of those other discs. I just tend to prefer the harp and some of the other options a little bit more personally. That's my review on the Sinus. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you once again to my man Max Garcia for hooking it up, sending me these to test and review. If you want to support me in the channel, my Patreon starts at only $2 a month. It's a super easy way that you can help support me that little bit. Thank you so much for your continued support. I appreciate you all, and I'll talk to you very soon. Cheers.